Boo! It's the 5-second countdown. That always, nothing like a little adrenaline rush as the clock counts down to 5, from 5 until you're live. Hey everybody, Jason Stum here with Dealer Inspire. You guys who are here right now, virtual gold stars to all of you for being on time. Just want to give like 1 minute, less than 1 minute for everyone else to get here. We got some great stuff we're going to talk about today, and I'm really excited. Real quick though, on the screen right now, this amazing animated GIF that we repurposed from The Shining. This is just amazing. I've been staring at this thing all day because it's so magical. Just got to give a big shout out to a couple of people on my team, Caitlin Crutterfield and Aaron Williamson, for bringing this to life. This is amazing. So enjoy that. And oh, you know what? Let's do it. It's 1 past the hour. It is time. My name is Jason Stum. I'm the Director of Strategy here at Dealer Inspire. And, I see we've got actually a lot of familiar faces here on the webinar today, which is great. But I'm pretty sure I'm seeing a few of you who might be meeting us for just the first or second time. So we are Dealer Inspire. I'm just one of 600 passionate employees on a mission to help future-proof dealerships with one connected platform that sells and services more vehicles more efficiently. And today we're here to show you how even the smallest of design mistakes can result in real business consequences. And if that sounds scary to you, well, it should, because it is. But before we get into that, one little piece of housekeeping before we continue. If you have any questions along the way, don't be afraid. Don't be scared to ask them. Just pop them right here in the chat, and we will do our best to get the A's to your Q's as we go along. So you know what? You guys want to hear a scary story? Okay, so last year, Driving Sales Executive Summit, I'm talking to an old dealership acquaintance of mine when he pulled me aside to tell me something that happened to him that quite honestly still freaks me out to this day. Let's see if I can get through this, because I really don't like talking about it. For the record, also, I didn't tell him I was going to share the story on this webinar, so let's just call him Tony so we can protect the reticent there. So we're sitting on one of those couches in the hallway outside the main ballroom at the Bellagio. If you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And Tony begins to relate to me how his website was in great shape, lots of monthly traffic, solid conversion rate. That led to plenty of leads for his team to engage with month in and month out. But then on a cold and stormy night, Tony tells me that, like on a whim, he decided to change the verbiage of the main CTA on his VDPs from show payment options to create my deal, and the color of the button from green to red. Now, Jason, knowing exactly where this was headed, I said, "Oh God, Tony, what did you do?" And then he grabbed my arm and he said, "Jason, after I made the change, my conversion rate dropped by 0.1%. And Tony was clearly freaked out, and rightfully so, because Tony did the math. And he discovered that while 0.1% may not sound like much, based on the 20,000 visits his website gets every month, that meant his chilling CTA change cost his dealership 40 leads. And then, seeing my reaction, he's like, "Jason, it gets worse. I made that change at the end of July, and I literally just discovered how badly I screwed this up today. That was 3 months ago." Which means I cost my dealership 120 leads. And at that point, Tony starts to verbalize the thoughts that were already going through my head, right? It's like, with his dealerships lead to close ratio of 15%, that means those 120 missed opportunities resulted in 18 fewer sales. And then, like some creepy math savant, Tony starts just talking. He's like, and then when you multiply that by the average 2,425 gross profit per vehicle sold, that 0.1% drop in conversion rate cost my dealership over $43,000, Jason. $43,000. And it's all my fault. I was just trying to make our website better. And I wrecked it. It really was a terrifying story. But in the end, it's just a temporary setback. And don't worry about Tony, he's okay. And he learned a valuable lesson. But we can all take something away from the story. And that is, when it comes to your website's design and user experience, you can never take making changes lightly. Now, there, are you scared? You should be. Anyway, let's turn some light back on here. So that was fun. Let's talk about this a little bit more. You see, we've all been programmed to make snap decisions from like the beginning of time based on our environment. Thousands of years ago, those snap decisions were based on something like, can I eat that vicious rabbit, or is that vicious rabbit going to eat me? And with an instant, your mind and body would react accordingly, thanks to, that fight or flight response system that's built into us. And even though today getting eaten by a vicious rabbit sounds silly and nonsensical, we still subconsciously make hundreds of these snap decisions every single day. Now, even when visiting a car dealer's website for the very first time, what that person experiences in those first few seconds or minutes is going to determine whether they continue their journey with you or bounce on back to the search results looking for another option. And the reality is, guys, is that 79% of shoppers will leave and never return to buy as a result of a frustrating website experience. And just about all of your customers today, and for a while now, they're going to meet you for the very first time on your website. So the feelings and emotions it conveys from a design standpoint, along with the overall consumer experience it provides by being able to quickly get users to where they need to be to answer their most important questions, that's what's going to set the stage for how each person perceives doing business at your dealership. Now, work with me here. If your website is simple, fast, and easy to use, then people will think buying a car will be simple, fast, and easy as well. However, if your website is slow, painful, and leads to frustration, well, then guess what? People are going to think about buying a car from you. Yes, slow, painful, and frustrating. So that's what we're here to talk about today. So how you can optimize your website for the user experience. And we're going to show you the 11 most common website design mistakes that you can make that will make your customers scream away in terror, but how you can fix them. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to need the help of the three of the smartest people I know when it comes to design and UX. And believe me when I tell you this, between the three of them, you won't find a more powerful or knowledgeable triumvirate. I said triumvirate, big word points there, of design experts anywhere else. I'm going to turn off my camera here so I can get all of them on at a time. So it's my distinct honor to introduce you to Nate Jones, Director of Product Design, Sarah Hernan, Director of Brand Design and UX, and Noah Aird, Creative Director at Dealer Inspire. Welcome to the show, guys. Hi. Oh my God. Look at all of you. You're amazing. How you guys doing?
Great.
Awesome.
That's good. Noah, I see you dressed up as a Green Bay Packer fan for Halloween.
We were supposed to dress up.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You wear that every day, don't you?
Yeah, guilty.
Well, Green Bay Packerism aside, hey, we all have worked together for a long time now, and I'm really excited to have all three of you here on the show. But I'm going to go on a limb that a lot of our audience is just seeing your faces and hearing your names for the first time. So let's do this just real quick. Start with you, Nate. Introduce yourself. Tell people who you are and what you do here at Dealer Inspire.
Awesome. I'm Nate Jones. I'm the Director of Product Design. So I lead our product design team to make sure that all of our products are the best behaving, the best looking, and the most intuitive products that are in the market.
I'm Sarah Hernan. I'm the Director of Brand Design and UX. I lead a team of super talented designers and developers, and we work on all the dealer marketing for Dealer Inspire, Dealer Rater, Fuel, and Cars.com.
And I'm Noah Aird. I'm a creative director, and my team specifically works on the front-end designs for the dealer websites within our website platform.
See, look at that. Three of the smartest people you'll ever want to have on a webinar about design. And they're so smart that I'm going to leave my camera off for the rest of this webinar because I want you guys to see them. Although just, you will hear my voice, my disembodied voice. So it's kind of spooky just popping in here and there. So let's get this thing rolling. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So really, it's just to set it up, everybody, for everyone who's here right now. We need to shine some light on design here, and making design changes. It doesn't need to be as scary as the story that I told, right? As long as you know the formula for success, you're going to be able to avoid making design mistakes. So what we're going to cover here today with our experts are the most common 11 website design mistakes and how to fix them, some measurement and analysis 101. And then really just to wrap it all up with a formula that you can rely on time after time after time for making website design decisions. So please stick with us here to the end because, again, you don't want to miss any of this. Hold on, getting organized here. Okay, so let's just start. Mistake number one, let's just dive right in, Nate. Forgetting your goal. Talk to me about this one. What's going on here?
Yeah, I'm actually glad we're starting here because it's really the most simplest and the most basic of all these mistakes. It's kind of like losing your phone service in a horror movie. When you forget your goal, you get distracted from it and you make decisions that can lead your customers astray. There's so much to look at here in this example, but if I had to guess, I would say the dealer's goal is I want to get more leads. So more leads, you probably need more CTAs, right? And unfortunately, the opposite is true. In this example, we're looking at a VDP that has a button at the top to view special offers, then an inline form for select price, and then below there's a CTA for unlock extra savings, and then another one for get e-price. If you put on your car shopper hat, which one of these are you supposed to tap? Like, what's the next natural step? And it's just not clear at all. When you have multiple similar sounding CTAs in your VDP, that's ultimately just going to confuse your visitor. And study after study shows that if you include too many options, then that don't have a next obvious step, people are most likely going to take no action at all.
Yeah, and that's really important. So obviously, it seems like there's an easy fix for this, but let's talk about it. How do we fix forgetting your goal here, Nate?
Yeah, a better goal would probably be, I know that my digital retailing solution is going to generate the most leads, and obviously the most leads lead to more direct sales. They close faster, they're more profitable. So I want to ensure as many people as possible are able to engage with that experience. So I'm going to ditch all of my other CTAs and make the main CTA on this page, the only CTA on this page for that digital retailing solution. So really the solution is that by clearly articulating your goal and keeping it in front of mind for every single decision, consciously making that goal the lens that you view every single design choice you make, that's going to help keep you on track.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let's do this. Let's just kind of round robin this as we go through these mistakes. And for too many distractions, let's talk to our friend from Wisconsin, or at least he's a Packer fan, Noah. Speaking of distractions, there was the joke. Too many distractions, Noah. What are we talking about here, my man?
Okay. Mistake number 2, too many distractions. So when you overwhelm your visitors with pop-ups, animated graphics, chat tools, blinking lights, or even mysterious audio tracks, you're needlessly distracting your visitors from what they're trying to accomplish, as well as giving off the impression of distrust. Remember, you're trying to convey through your website that your dealership is a professional, trustworthy business that visitors want to experience and buy from. Think of it this way: when you're shopping for anything online for yourself, regardless of what it is, do you witness the same amount of competing elements and intrusive distractions? Not at all. And how annoying is it when you have to wade through all these layers just to get to the navigation or your final destination on the website? Vary. So you really don't you also do not want your website to feel spammy. Otherwise, visitors will show up and bounce or get frustrated that they can't navigate it properly.
Yeah, no, that goes back to that stat that I touched on in the beginning. With 79% of the people will bounce off your site as a result of a frustrating experience. And having too many of these things all at once, definitely frustrating. So it seems like the fix is easy here, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, instead, a better strategy is just to remove all the noise, so visitors have a clear path and direction to follow. And in reality, many of these distractions are really just messages that should all be condensed and utilized in one single area, like your homepage slider or DI's personalizer. You don't need a chat tab, a gas card pop-up, a value trade-in pop-up, a slide about lease offers, etc. Condense it all down to 1 or 2 methods of delivery. And if it's something like a chat tool, a major tool on your website, it can be designed natively into your website so it feels less obtrusive overall.
Yeah, I think it's worth touching on a quick little PSA here, if you will, about action paralysis. And this really goes back to a famous study that Columbia University did years ago. And it speaks to the first 2 things that Nate and Noah talked about. And in the study from Columbia, they set up like this little jam stand, a jam stand at a local supermarket. And the first weekend that they set it up, they had 30 different types of jam for customers to sample and add to their physical shopping cart, not their digital shopping cart, right? And so that first weekend, only 3% of the people who stopped by actually took one of those jars of jam and put them into their shopping cart. The next weekend, same store, same location, same setup, except they reduced their number of choices down to 6 types of jam. And then that weekend, of everyone who stopped by, 30%, a whopping 30% of people actually took some jam and put it in their cart to buy. So they reduced the amount of choices, and they ended up with a better business result when they provided too much choice. So having 14 different CTAs on your website, having all these different pop-ups that you feel are just going to open more doors to generating a lead, a lot of times just lead people in this in action paralysis where they don't know what they should do. So instead of trying to sit there and figure it out, they just leave. They make no choice at all. So that's really important to keep in mind when you're evaluating your own website to see, are you able to, remembering your goal and removing those distractions to keep people moving down the funnel where you want them. Sarah, I'm sorry for rambling there, but mistake number 3, inconsistent branding. Talk to me about it.
Branding, yeah. So this can be a tough one because odds are you might have multiple entities regularly adding assets and elements to your website. So a kind of common scenario that I see from a lot of dealers is homepage sliders. So you may have your own team creating sliders, and then maybe you get sliders broadcasted from an OEM, and then perhaps you're using like an agency or some of your other third-party partners have an asset library image library that you can use. So you kind of start stacking them all on your homepage, and then there's inconsistent branding, colors, fonts that oftentimes clash with the overall design of your website. And then, so when your website kind of looks pieced together from spare parts, your visitors will probably be left with a bad first impression. And obviously we don't want that.
Yeah, and Sarah, to your point, that really is tough when you have all those different cooks in the kitchen, if you will, and then especially too if you're like part of an automotive group that has multiple rooftops that you're dealing with. So, what are a couple of the ways that we can fix this? A dealer can fix this and address it.
Well, the fix here that I recommend is to have a style guide, and it can be pretty simple, but you can give it to anyone who's providing digital content for your website. This will help ensure that the right fonts, colors, and overall styling is being used to present a unified brand message, regardless of who's creating anything. And then maybe you'll want to invoke some of the design language that your OEM does to kind of tie your dealership brand to the OEMs. So for example, if you're a CJDR dealer and the text they always use on the homepage sliders is 24-point rubato, then you want to make sure the sliders you're creating also use 24-point rubato, just so they match. You can still have your own brand identity, but you just want to make sure it plays nicely with your OEM, especially if they have stricter brand standards. Or another way to solve for inconsistent branding, not just on your website, but across all your marketing channels, is with our DI managed services. So assets like homepage sliders, VRP banners, special offers, landing pages, emails, social posts, you name it. Our managed services team can create and publish and distribute those creative assets across your entire digital ecosystem to make sure that your branding's consistent and on point every month.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. No matter if you're doing it, if you have your own team, or if you're using our team, it's really just to present that consistent message. Now, I want to talk to you about this, Sarah. I've actually been looking forward to this slide most leading up to this presentation. So when is it appropriate to use the Comic Sans fonts in any of your marketing assets?
I'm going to tell you never, especially not emails. I see it a lot in dealer emails, and I would just beg all of you to change that font, please, so people take you seriously.
Comic Sans, guys. It's cute, right? We've all used it. Guilty, Noah, Nate, we've used it before. Okay, I have. When I was in the dealership, Comic Sans was my go-to. I learned my lesson. I got smarter. Thank you, Sarah, for making me smarter and better. Okay, let's keep this moving before I totally derail it. What are we on here? Tip number 4, disconnected experiences. Nate Jones.
Yeah, so this one is super common in our space. So as you install different widgets and gizmos from different providers, like you have one provider for a website and a different one for trade-in and a different one for chat and even a different one for digital retailing, it can be really disorienting for your customers. If you have 4 different companies providing 4 really key components of your online experience, 2 things can really happen. One is that none of those tools talk to each other. So they are asking your customers over and over again to tell them the same information that they already told you. And then the other is that just because that they were built to be able to go on any website, it doesn't mean that they were really built to integrate with your platform. So that means that like your chat tool, for example, it can cover up critical information on your VDP, or your digital retailing solution opens up in a new tab that is totally different look and feel from your main website. And it can really confuse the shopper to wonder if they've been transported somewhere else.
Yeah, and so well, let's talk about this. How do we fix it, or what should a dealer be looking for here in terms of when they look at their own digital ecosystem?
Yeah, well, it's also Not to say that there aren't platform providers that offer seamless and fully integrated solutions for all those tools, because there are.
Subtle,
Wink,
Nate.
wink. You like that?
That's good.
All right. That said, like who you use for your tools and the tools that you use, you still want to, again, put on your car shopper hat and pick up your phone and fire up your website and just go through the whole process yourself, both sales and service, to really get an understanding for what you're putting your customers through and make sure that makes sense. It's important to be on the lookout for some spooky villains as you're doing that. You want to see if there are any widgets that block content elements, like a chat tool. You want to see if there are any pages that don't really load properly on mobile. Maybe it's like an iframe trade-in or a service scheduler. And then also you want to make sure that the CTAs and buttons don't needlessly open up new windows. And as you're doing it, take really good notes. And then if you find problems, you can reach out to those providers and suggest fixes, that ask for them to fix those things. And if they can't, then maybe it's time to look for somebody else too.
Yeah, makes sense. Moving it on to mistake number 5 here, form friction. Let's bring back Mr. Cheesehead himself. Noah, talk to me about this, buddy.
Yeah, sure. So lead forms, they've been a staple on dealer websites for the past 2 decades or so.
At least,
and while at one point in time they provided a fairly useful path to conversion, today we're seeing them being submitted less often than ever. There's a lot of reasons why. In fact, we could do an entire 60-minute presentation all about forms. But the TLDR of it is that, one, consumer behavior has evolved to the point where they expect instant and complete answers on demand. And 2, people are more protective of their privacy than ever as well. Forms, by their very nature, are the opposite of that. And with the form, you're asking a person to give up their personal information and then wait for who knows how long to get the info that they are searching for.
Yeah, so let's talk about the fix here, because there's a couple things that we can look at, right?
Yeah, of course. But so just because forms are falling out of favor with consumers, that doesn't mean that your website's ability to generate leads is going to suffer. Quite the opposite, in fact. For example, we've seen conversational conversions. That's a tough one to say. Which are experiences that take place within an automated chat flow, such as getting a trade-in value, can actually increase lead generation compared to its form-based counterpart. And while we cannot fully get away from passive forms, we can still leverage chat to replace these forms when applicable, if it fits the particular scenario. If you must use forms, just remember to keep them short and sweet and format them so not all sensitive information is required. And overall, let's just be honest here. We're not fooling any visitors these days with forms. Everybody knows that when a form is presented up front to get information off a website, that it's probably going to be sent to a sales team or a salesperson that's going to hound you for who knows how long. So that's why I use Jason's contact info.
That explains so much. Oh, Noah. That was a good one. Okay, Sarah, get me back on track here. Number 6. Mistake number 6, ambiguity and dead ends. Let's go.
Yeah, no matter how you're kind of generating leads, you never want to leave your customer hanging and unsure of what's supposed to happen next. This is something I see a lot in any industry, and as a user, it always leaves me feeling pretty frustrated. But a check you can do at your dealership is to submit a test lead across your various forms and then just make a note of what happens, as Nate says, put on your shopper hat, and try out the process that your customers go through just to make sure it's a good one. And if you're redirected to the same generic thank you page post for all your forms, then you really could be bringing that shopping experience for a customer to a screeching halt, especially if those pages say something like, "Thank you for submitting your request for information. Someone from our team will be reaching out to you." That really tells me nothing about what's going to happen next and what do I do in the meantime. So personally, I'm not going to want to answer an email or a phone call or text message from a random number if no one told me that was going to happen.
Yeah. No one really likes to be left hanging without knowing next steps. So how do we fix this? How do we do this in a better way?
So on top of, just writing better thank you pages that are more clear, I recommend a unique and fully optimized thank you page for each of your different CTAs. So think about what you're trying to get them to do. For example, if someone clicked your e-price or get e-price button and submitted the form, you could redirect them to a thank you page that has a video message from someone on your team explaining to them what to expect, direct them to your digital retailing tool to explore different finance and payment scenarios on their own. This will keep them engaged on your website, and they'll even begin to close themselves in on the vehicle they're interested in, instead of just having to wait for someone at the dealership to get back to them via text or email for that e-price. And then another example would be if someone clicked the check availability CTA on a used car, you could land them on a thank you page that lets them know that while your website's inventory is automatically updated multiple times a day, your sales team member will still be actively ensuring that the vehicle of interest is still available, and we'll send them a text confirmation shortly. So by doing that, the customer will be more receptive to your incoming text message, and you'll probably be able to engage them more easily to get them to come in and set up an appointment or schedule a test drive for that vehicle.
Yeah, and that's kind of a big deal, Sarah. And I want to circle back to something you just said to highlight again. So, talk about like that get e-price example you just gave. And then how about telling, like on that thank you page, showing people that you have this digital retailing solution. Typically, at least for online shopper customers, online shopper is going to generate the highest quality leads and the most leads from their website. So if somebody did click another CTA because he hadn't pared them down yet, at least try to get them back into there. Because if you don't give them next steps, you're essentially telling them that they're done now and they have nothing else to do. So give them something else to do to keep them engaged. That is some great tips there, Sarah. Thank you. Moving on to mistake number 7, and I can't believe we have to talk about this, Nate Jones. Mobile as an afterthought. It's 2020, my man.
I know, and I really wish I didn't have to say this as a reminder. And I'm sure that your desktop website looks really great, but 66%, a full 2/3 of all your visitors is from a mobile device. And it's also, I mean, you just said it, Jason, it's not a new thing. It's been clear for a couple of years now that you have to pay a lot more attention to mobile than what you probably are right now. And failing to think about mobile as at least as important as your desktop experience is going to lead to providing a subpar shopping experience for most of your users.
Yeah, and so you really got to develop this, and if you haven't already, and we should have, develop a mobile first mindset, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I kind of get it. When you're working, you're looking at your website on your desktop computer, and the people on your team who are updating your site, they're probably also doing it from the desktop computer. So I know it takes extra time, but every single change you make in every addition to your website, whatever you do, it has to be QC'd on mobile to ensure that you're not providing a crappy experience to really the biggest segment of your users. And the other thing about mobile first is that it doesn't just help with making sure it works on mobile, but it helps you make decisions too. Because we talked about too many distractions and extra gizmos and things like that on the site. And if it's stuff that you can't fit onto the mobile site, you really need to question if you need it at all.
Oh, look at this. And Nate, I see you slipped in a pro tip here.
I do.
Give you, sir. What's up?
I do have a pro tip. So this is a pro tip for users or for people who are using Chrome. So you can actually, if it's too much work to get your phone out and check things right away, you can open up what's called DevTools. And this sounds complicated. It isn't, but just stick with me. If you're using Chrome on Windows, you can do Shift-Control-J. Or on Mac, it's Option-Command-J, and that's going to open up DevTools. And once that opens up, you'll be able to see a new panel open up that has the code for that page on the website. And at the top of that, you'll be able to see a little icon that's it looks like a phone and a tablet together. If you click on that, that's going to re-render the page to make it look as if it is on a mobile device. And you can also switch mobile devices in there if you want to preview it on an Android phone and maybe an older iPhone or anything like that. You can switch that around and take a look at it. So the only thing to remember is that it's not a perfect solution. So if you see something wonky, make sure you actually get your phone out and load it on your phone as well, just to make sure it's really there before like submitting a service request or being too concerned about it.
Yeah, and that's an amazing tip. I highly recommend you guys take a screenshot of this if you weren't aware of it. Remember that and start using it. And just like Nate said, if you do see something that looks wonky in Chrome Dev Tools, hey, we both said wonky, just make sure it's on your phone. See it on your phone too. Moving on, mistake number 8, ignoring accessibility. This is kind of a big deal, Noah. Talk to me about it.
Super big deal, especially recently. So website accessibility has become a big topic the past 3 years as more and more lawsuits have been brought against businesses that didn't have fully accessible websites to those with impairments or disabilities. But beyond the legal ramifications, we strongly recommend making your website accessible to all users to the benefit of your consumers and your business as you connect with a broader audience.
Go ahead. I was just sorry.
In addition to that, it's important to point out that not all accessibility issues should be recognized as long-term. Many people often think of blindness or hearing disabilities as the main target for website accessibility, but there are also temporary disabilities like a broken arm or someone that's gone through surgery recently that may limit potential buyers for a short amount of time. So it's important to make sure your website is as versatile and accessible as possible.
There you go. Sorry for jumping in on you there. What I was gonna say is I know accessibility can be like a tricky thing to keep up with. I mean, how do we open up our websites to make sure that everybody it's accessible to everyone?
Sure. The easiest solution is to work with a provider that can install assistive technology. There's a number of them out there. At DI, we partner with a company called AudioEye, who's the industry leader in the space, and they provide a fully customizable experience for users with disabilities, which they can tailor to their individual needs, regardless of their device type, their language preference, or preferred method of access. The idea is that you want your website to be open to the largest possible audience, all while protecting yourself from any potential litigation.
Yeah, and this is I don't know if you guys remember this from last October, but there's a real big case that went before the Supreme Court. It was a suit brought against Domino's Pizza, and while they had an accessible website and obviously their physical stores were accessible to those with disability, they had a mobile app which was not built with accessibility in mind. Domino's argument is that people could still access us through other ways, but the Supreme Court ruled that every entry point needed to be accessible to all, and so they lost that suit, and that really set a precedent that all businesses just need to be aware of. So working to make your website accessible really is more important than ever. And as Noah said, not just from a litigation standpoint, but just from, opening it up to everybody to make sure that you are an option for them. Let's bring it over to Sarah for mistake number 9 here. We have a failure to update, Sarah.
Failure to update. This is an easy trap to fall into, I think. Maybe you spent a lot of time making a new site, and then after it went live, you just got too busy to update it or keep it fresh, and you might have old offers or graphics that could really scare customers away. Or maybe you're really hands-on with your website and you've invested a lot of digital blood, sweat, and tears into it over the years. And since you've grown so attached to it, you've just become unwilling to change anything, let alone totally rework it from the ground up. So after a few years, you could have created a Frankenstein monster, but with a bunch of different widgets and gizmos that just aren't providing the best customer experience anymore.
I will say, Sarah, that the previous version of Jason can totally relate to being unwilling to change something that he worked on for years and years and years.
Yeah, I
probably
get it.
to his own detriment. So what's the fix for people like Jason out there who just don't want to embrace change?
So yeah, you don't want to be afraid to redesign your website. You should always be iterating, especially with the pace that technology, consumer behavior, and best practices change and evolve. It's recommended by experts across industries that you update your website every 3 years to ensure you haven't made a monster along the way that makes your visitors run away in terror. Conversational conversions, integrated digital retailing, fresh messaging, and creative all go a long way to show your visitors that your dealership provides a modern and convenient shopping experience, both online and in store. And then in between redesigns, I feel like you can go a long way, just making sure that you keep your creative fresh and on brand, and then possibly implement some small design changes here and there based off data.
Yeah, and look, when it comes to, iteration, it's really what we've been doing here at DI for the past 8 years. I mean, if you go back and look at some of our earlier designs for the time, they were top of the line stuff. And then as consumer behavior evolves, as technology evolves, our goal became not to catch up to where it's at, but to predict where it was going. And we still do that to this day. And a great example also here is just with our inventory. You can see where it was and where it is today with our Lightning inventory, where anything can be found within a snap with just a couple of keystrokes. We're able to iterate with that and continue to keep it going forward. So don't be afraid to change. Again, I know what it's like to get invested in something, especially if you were as hands-on as I was when I was at the dealership. Always be looking to keep it fresh and keep it cool, just like Sarah was talking about. Moving on. Oh, we're getting down to the last two here. Mistake number 10, poor planning. Well, this sounds sad. What happened?
It is a little sad. It's also so easy. It's one of the easiest mistakes you can make is to make a whole bunch of changes in a very short amount of time and not make notes about what was changed or when exactly it was changed. Really, the worst thing you can do is just to make a bunch of changes at once and then check back 30 days later or not at all and see what happened. If you don't take those extra steps along the way, you can really be staring at a dumpster fire in Google Analytics with no way to know what sparked it.
Yeah, dumpster fire is bad, especially digital ones. So what's the fix to our poor planning here? Better planning.
So when you're making those design changes, the best practice is to really roll them out one at a time, and preferably after you do A/B testing on each iteration, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. The key is to make sure that you note the date that the changes went into effect and exactly what those changes were. That way you can come back later and you can review the impact and make sure that the changes you push live were good ones.
Yeah, and that's showing that self-restraint, Nate, that you're just talking about to make changes one at a time, to test, to measure, and all that stuff. That's huge. It's really tempting to do like a clean change 18,000 things at once and cross your fingers.
Right.
It's got to be a little more subtle than that. Man, we are just flying through here. We are at tip 11 already, but remember, after the tips, we got some more stuff for you. So stick around. Noah, lastly, mistake 11, looking like everybody else.
All right. Yeah. Last mistake in the group, but so having a generic looking stock website photos and videos, or using stock vehicle photos on your inventory, or just publishing bland and uninspiring content in general will not leave a lasting impression with your visitors or really give off the feeling of a unique and organic website and experience.
Gotcha. So you really got to make this your own, right? What's the best way for our dealer friends to do this?
Right. Of course, you don't have to necessarily change the entire layout of your website. And to the average consumer, all dealerships, they are the same, and in a sense that's true. But the one thing that your dealership has that no other dealer in the world has is your people. Make your people front and center on your website to show visitors who you are and how you can help. To do this, we push this a lot. I personally push this a lot. I suggest that once a year or so, you hire a photographer or a videographer to capture images of your staff, your dealership, your service department, your inventory, and your property, and really just overall the energy and vibrance that your dealership emits, which usually just gets lost when stock images are used on your website. So really, it's quite possibly the easiest way to bring your website to life and make you stand out from your competition.
Yeah, and especially I know, Noah, you hear this a lot. I've heard it a lot too, is that when you're part of an OEM website program and, it's like, you got a few different templates you can choose from, you might start to think that you're kind of being forced to look like, other dealers. But in reality, you're not. A template is just a canvas, right? So you can do what you're doing here. I mean, look at our example on the screen. That's just going to make your brand and your people stand out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's Dealers do get pretty limited sometimes with the OEM templates and all that, but of course, adding very authentic images and videos is really gonna make you stand out, regardless of how small of a box you're kind of put in.
Right. So I think the pro tip here is don't pay for a Shutterstock or an iStock photo to get those stock photos. Pay for someone to create your own stock photo library of your own people in your own facilities, right? Boom. Let's keep it moving on here. Okay, so making decisions with data and not emotion. Look, I referenced this quite a few times here when we're looking at these website mistakes and how to defend them, but even how to fix them. Where's Jason? But even when making a change that is generally accepted as a best practice, you still want to make sure you're using data and not emotion to justify the change. So let's talk about, Noah, what are some of the ways that we can actually use data to make smart design decisions?
So ideally, you want to A/B test any changes that you're thinking about making before moving forward. Most website providers today, they should easily be able to help you set up and perform A/B tests using Google Optimize or Optimizely. Using either of these tools, you can serve up the existing design, which will be the control, as well as the modified design, both within a specific amount of time. After that time has passed, the goal is reached, providing you with the data on how each version performed. So a real life example, let's say you wanted to change the text on a CTA on your VDP that launches your digital retailing tool from buy now to explore payment options. You could run an A/B test and see which verbiage led to more clicks on the CTA overall. And then you could go even deeper and analyze if the people who clicked the buy now button showed a different level of engagement with your tool than those that clicked the explore payment options button. It's possible you might find that there's little to no difference between the click rate on each button, but that the group who clicked the explore payment options button tended to be more engaged with your tool, even though both buttons were leading to the exact same experience.
Yeah, that just really goes to show like the psychology that goes into website design. How powerful that can be is, one phrase could take somebody to the same experience, but they engage with whatever they're engaging with on a deeper level. So when you do A/B test, what Noah is saying is sometimes you got to go beyond just the results, what got clicked on more, and go into what people did and what were the outcomes of those clicks. What else can we do when we're talking about making decision with data and not emotion?
Sure. So another important step when implementing design changes is to make sure you are annotating them within Google Analytics, specifying what changes were made and when. That way you always have a reference point available for you or anyone else to come back to. This is especially important if you work on a team that manages a dealership or dealer group's entire digital presence. If everyone is making changes without making regular notes of them within Google Analytics, or if team members leave, there's a high chance that all those changes get lost in the shuffle, leaving everyone in the dark as to what was done and when.
Yeah, super important, especially with the turnover rate, as it can be a little bit on the higher side in automotive, is to make sure that your team is annotating whenever they make these changes. Just so if somebody does leave and the new person comes in, they have a historical reference to what's going on. It's for the betterment of your overall growth, digital growth in the end. So Sarah, I don't know. I'm not a numbers person per se. I like to use my eyeballs for things. Don't you?
Yeah, I'm definitely a more visual person. So I prefer heat maps. It's just easier for me to process. They can show you the elements on any given web page that people are actually clicking on. So the brighter the color, the more action that particular element is receiving by users. So hopefully you can see in this example, it might be a little hard, but on the left, the models filter has the highest, it's like the brightest. So it means a lot of people are clicking on the models filter, which makes sense. But if you look at the main menu, you can see the next most interacted element on this page is the finance specials. So to me, together, this shows that yes, people are interested in certain vehicles, but almost as importantly, people have unanswered questions on their minds when it comes to financing. So just by looking at this heat map, you'll be able to get a much better understanding of user behavior compared to that of just looking at Google Analytics. And if this was me, I would want to make sure that that financing specials page has the absolute best content, so that if you're sending people there, they're getting what they need. And then we listed a couple of commonly used providers, which is Hotjar and Crazy Egg. They can help capture heat maps and other user interactions on your website.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's just like, I don't know, Sarah. I'm thinking through, I know my way around the Google Analytics. I don't know if you could figure out the correlation between how many people are looking at that finance tab while they're looking at the VRP without
Right.
in front of your face like this. So heat maps can be huge to your advantage to make sure that you're providing the best experience across the board. Ooh, this seems interesting. Session recording, Sarah.
Yeah, if you really want to go down a rabbit hole, you can use third-party tools to record the actual web sessions of real people using your website. Just you see like their mouse kind of scrolling over the screen, and where they're not only their clicks, but you can kind of see like where they pause and what they're doing, the scrolling. It's a little creepy, but it's
sorry, I was like, does it turn their web camera on too? No.
No. But you'll be kind of blown away by the way that people are interacting and engaging with your website, because it's probably very different than the way you engage with it. So this really helps you understand the whole customer experience throughout your website and make sure the design decisions you made are truly the right choice. So I don't know, I find this really cool to see like where they're pausing and maybe kind of where they're hovering or what they're maybe trying to click, but it's not clickable. It's just a good, I encourage everyone to do it.
I know we didn't put this in the deck, Sarah, and I know I'm going off book here, but rage clicks. I know you're fascinated with rage clicks.
Rage clicks are my favorite.
Tell everyone what a rage click is.
Rage clicks in analytics, you can see where people are, I think they're called rage clicks analytics in the moderation, or in the chat can correct me, but you can see where people are clicking multiple times, and usually it's because there's a broken link or they think something should be a link and it's not. And we've looked at the DI analytics on our website and found issues where links were broken, or we maybe aren't using the best CTA color because people, think that something's a CTA when it's not. So it's helped us make a lot of changes for better user experience.
That's right. When it comes down to it, being able to see how people are using your website, and having seen a lot of session recordings in my life, it will blow your mind if you've never watched them before, because I guarantee you, just like Sarah said, people are using your website in a much different way than you think they are. But all these things we talked about today, there's really a simple formula. Again, grab a screenshot here so you don't forget skis. There's a real simple formula that you can follow to make sure that you are taking the right steps each and every time. Nate, why don't you just break this down for us here real quick?
Yeah, so it's really just everything we went over today. So setting a goal and making sure your plan sticks to that goal, making sure that anything you introduce new, that you do an A/B test on it and measure when you roll it out. Make sure you annotate things so you can track the performance of each change, and just keep going on that iteration cycle. It's a not so secret formula, and if you stick to this formula, you can rest assured that you won't accidentally unleash a terrifying design change that you'll regret.
That's right. No regrets. No, you don't want to do that. Well, and look at that, guys. We did it. For everyone who attended the webinar today, I really thank you. It's the end of the month. And so I just want to thank you guys for being here. And let's thank Noah and Nate and Sarah for bringing their design expertise. Thank you, guys. Let's give them a big round of applause that you won't be. Oh, there. Sarah, I was waiting for that. I was waiting the whole time for that.
That's perfect.
That was amazing. And if you are already a Dealer Inspire client and you want to talk about anything we covered today, just reach out to your performance manager. And if you're not with DI and you want to learn more about what we do and how we can help your dealership get on the right path and future-proof your digital ecosystem, our contact information is right here on the screen. So with that, thank you all so much. And we will see you next month on the next Dealer Inspire webinar.